Hi, this is Carl, and this is the second, although belated part of the discussion about double negatives in Spanish. I originally recorded this video about 2 weeks ago, but for some reason unknown to me, it wouldn't upload onto YouTube, and so therefore I'm providing this re-recording. Now, just to recap what I mentioned in part 1, I discussed the fact that double negatives exist in a number of European and world languages. However, as far as the English language is concerned, if they're used in speech, then they would more often than not be considered incorrect, unless there were conversations going off, let's say, between speakers of regional dialects, especially those dialects which are spoken across the north of the United Kingdom. But as far as the written language is concerned, and as far as standard English is concerned, double negatives are indeed classed as being grammatically incorrect, although, as I say, in many European and world languages they are very common and would be expected to be used. So just taking a few examples of double negatives which would exist in local dialects, especially the one which I speak, the Broad Yorkshire dialect, sometimes known as Tyke. If I were translating from standard English into Tyke the phrase, I don't know anything, that phrase containing only the one negative, don't, I don't, one negative, know anything, which is positive, would translate literally as I don't, the first negative, know nothing, the second negative, and then in dialect, I don't know naught, I don't know naught, would be the example. Taking another example, we might have in standard English, I don't know anybody at the party, again, one negative, don't know anybody, positive. And in Broad Yorkshire, literally, I don't, one negative, know nobody, second negative. I don't know nobody, I don't know nobody, would be the example there. If we translate the double negatives that I've just given as examples from the Broad Yorkshire dialect into Spanish, then we would have something along the lines of no sé nada, would be the translation of I don't know anything, no sé nada, but literally translated from Spanish into English word for word becomes I don't know nothing, no sé nada. Now, very often what happens in Spanish is that the double negative is introduced by the mention of the word no, usually at the beginning of the sentence. In this case, no sé, I don't know, the sentence begins with no, and that is an indication that the double negative or the additional negative word or words will come up thereafter. No, first negative, sé, nada, second double negative. Taking the second example I just gave in Broad Yorkshire, I don't know anybody. Again, this time we need the alternative translation of the verb to know in Spanish, the one reserved for when you make reference to the fact that you know people or places, are acquainted with people and places, using the appropriate verb form of conocer, as opposed to saber, which is reserved for facts, as in I don't know anything, I don't know any facts. No sé nada from saber, but in this case I don't know anybody, using the first person of conocer, which is conozco. No conozco a nadie, the personal a being required in this particular example. No, first negative, conozco a nadie, second negative. And in Spanish we have examples of sentences which include even treble negatives, quadruple negatives, quintuple negatives, and maybe if we were being a little bit competitive and trying to think up of sentences which were as long as possible, we could end up with sextuple negatives. So there you have it. The double negative in Spanish, or even the treble, quadruple, quintuple negative does exist, whereas in English, in standard English, it would, of course, be frowned upon because it is grammatically incorrect. And just take one more example with never. We say in English, I never go. But we can also say, although it doesn't sound as correct, or wouldn't sound as correct for some people, for some speakers, would be, I don't ever go. Now if we say I don't ever go, which has the same meaning as I never go, we can start the sentence in Spanish with nunca and just be required to use the one negative and say nunca voy. But if we want to say that I don't ever go, then we're starting with the no voy, which is the first negative, the word no. Then we have to use a double negative and say literally I don't go never, which would then be no voy nunca.